So, I'm going to continue with the discussion on the basic concept of strategic management. So, good day, everyone. Now we're going to tackle about globalization and environmental sustainability, a challenge in most businesses nowadays. So, why does this become a challenge? So, let me give you a brief overview or a history or how this come into being. Before, when there was no concern of the environment, any business could just, let's say, do their business, produce what they need to produce. Um, they only focus only on making and selling goods or providing services within its national boundaries. When you businesses are just focused on the country where they are in, and then profits earned from exporting products to foreign lands were considered just a frost, just like an icing to the cake. It's just superficial. It's not that essential to the company. What is essential before is how they profit, how they sell, how their sales increases in the country they are in. And then during those time, they don't care if they dump their waste in the rivers, in the oceans, in the lakes, or deplete some of the resources, natural resources in the environment. But as society evolves and people are also complaining already of the pollution it causes, government respond to this in the form of creating laws that necessitates businesses to abide to these certain laws. That's why there are cleanups being made. There are already inventors who go for green. They go green. Less emission, less pollution. They are now into this era of evolution. That's why, and also, globalization has affect how a business works. Because of globalization, the integrated internationalization of markets and corporation has changed the way modern corporations do business. If you are only limited, a huge company limited only to its country, then one way or the other, they cannot explore new markets and have a good spread of their profits. So, and but that is not only the challenge. It's not only globalization, but environmental sustainability. This refers to the use of business practices to reduce the company's impact upon the natural physical environment. Climate change is playing a growing role in business decisions. So because of climate change, people are going green already, or businesses are going green, so that to not only to abide by the laws, but also to create an impact in the environment. So now we're going to tackle about impacts of globalization. Because of globalization, jobs, knowledge, and capital are now able to move across borders with far greater speed and far less friction than was possible only a few years ago. The worldwide availability of the internet and supply chain logistical improvement such as containerized shipping mean that companies can now locate anywhere and work with multiple partners to serve any market, to reach the economies of scale necessary to achieve the low cost and thus the low prices needed to be competitive. Companies are now thinking of a global market instead of national markets. As more industries become global, strategic management is becoming an increasingly important way to keep track of international developments and position a company for long-term competitive advantage. You are so familiar with shoes, the brand. I'm gonna mention a brand here, Nike. If Nike will just sold its product in the US, do you think Nike can reach a wider market at the same time have the profit they have right now if they do not come to our country or any other countries for that matter? They will not, right? But because they have, Nike is profitable not only in their country but also internationally. They export their products. I'm gonna mention again another business that joins the globalization and spread its supply chain and its market. Jollibee Food Corporation. Jollibee is not just limited in the Philippines. We can now see Jollibee in the US, in the Middle East, and other countries where they have reached their market. They are, and because of logistics and availability of resources, it has made this globalization possible. And because of this globalization, they cannot just keep coming from one country going to another country just to manage their product. They have to use strategic management in order to do that and apply strategies that will also benefit them, at the same time still abide with the rules and regulation of the country they conduct business with. Now we go next to impact of sustainability. So this is by Ellen Closen, president of the Pew Center on Global Climate Change. There is a growing consensus among corporate leaders that taking actions on climate change is a responsible business decision. From market shifts to regulatory constraints, climate change poses real risks and opportunities that companies must begin planning for today, or risk losing ground to their more forward-thinking competitors. Prudent steps taken now to address climate change can improve a company's competitive position relative to its peers and earn it a seat at the table to influence climate policy. With more and more actions at the state level and increased scientific clarity, it is time for businesses to craft corporate strategies that addresses climate change. So, what do you understand by the word sustainability? So, sustainability is a term was used to describe competitive advantage, not the environment. So technically, when you use environmental sustainability, as mentioned a while ago, refers to business practices to reduce the company's impact upon natural and physical environment. And one of this is climate change. Because of the greenhouse gases and other pollutants that the companies are emitting in the atmosphere, before and even until now, government are having this way certain laws in order to at least lessen the carbon emission. So what are they doing with it? Some of them have planting trees or providing other means. In Japan, in order to still be able to cope up with climate change and have sustainability and have clean air, some of their buildings, they put their gardens on top of their buildings, on the rooftop of their buildings. So if there are gardens, there are trees, it emits oxygen. So somehow it helps in lessening the emission of carbon. So, and even until today, sustainability has been a very controversial issues, because businesses are trying, and not only businesses, but it is also mandated by the law that we have to emit less carbon and less pollution to the environment so that we can still do business. It's like as simple as putting your garbage in the right trash bin. If it is hazardous, then you put it in the hazardous bin. And if it is biodegradable, as much as possible, if it is compost or just the morsels or the peels of fruits, you can use it as fertilizers. And some companies are actually doing their best in order to um, less carbon dioxide footprints when they do business. And also, they have to abide with the rules and regulations of the state or the country they are working or they are having their business. So, the effects of climate change. There are, I think, 6 effects of climate change. So, I have to say this statement. According to Porter and Reinhardt, they warn that in addition to understanding its emission cost, of course, the businesses and the manufacturing firm, every firm needs to evaluate its vulnerability to climate-related effects such as regional shifts in availability of energy and water, the reliability of infrastructures and supply chains, and the prevalence of infectious disease. So they have to really do something in how they do it. The effects of climate change on industries and companies throughout the world can be grouped into categories. These categories I'm going to mention. And then these categories are risk category. So the first is regulatory risk. Companies in much of the world are exactly subject to the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol is actually, I have to provide a link for this. You have to look at the link below in order to better understand what is Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol, which which requires the developed countries to reduce carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases by an average of 6% this is from 1990 levels until 2025. Companies can also earn credits toward their emission by investing in emission-abated projects outside their own firms. So probably from gasoline fueled vehicles to electric vehicles or solar panel fueled vehicles. That is the risk they have to abide also, because if you do not abide with this regulatory risk, one way or another, you're going to be penalized by the government who imposes this laws. Next is supply chain risk. Suppliers will be increasingly vulnerable to government regulations, leading to higher component and energy costs as they pass along increasing carbon-related costs to their customers. Global supply chains will be at risk from an increasing intensity of major storms and flooding. So, of course, because of climate change, the supply chain can also be at risk. This is because the supply chain, if this is affected by storms, floods, and the likes, the goods that you need in order to produce certain products will also be hampered in terms of delivery. Or probably your supplier are also the one emitting pollutants or too much pollutants in the environment. So as you can see, as you have probably heard on documentaries, higher sea levels resulting from the melting of polar ice will create problems for seaport. So this is because if the caps are continuously melting, it increases the volume of water in the ocean, and then if it happens, there will be just a few rains and then it will flood. And actually, this is actually happening in the Philippines. If you're familiar in Luzon, there's an area there, Malabon. Somehow it's below sea level. So technically, if just a few rains, it will really flood in the area. The next is product and technology risk. Environmental sustainability can be a prerequisite to profitable growth. For example, for this is worldwide investment in sustainable energy, we have sustainable energy actually investment in our country, like wind energy. I think this is found in Ilocos. Water power, also solar power. These are energy that are being sourced from nature. Or in our province, we have geothermal energy, and they claim that this it is clean energy. So I hope it is true. Carbon-friendly products using new technologies are becoming increasingly popular with consumers. Those automobile companies, for instance, that were quick to introduce hybrid or alternative energy cars gain to competitive advantages. So when you're talking about hybrid cars, these cars uses both electric energy, at the same time fuel from gasoline. So other things that have, because of pollution and climate change, um, we can now see biodegradable straws, biodegradable spoons and forks, and biodegradable plastics made from cassava and among other potato starch and the likes, being invented by some scientists. So carbon friendly products. And then the air conditioning and refrigerator nowadays are chlorofluorocarbon free. At the same time, they use less electricity compared to what was invented before. So these are inventions that promotes sustainability, at the same time um, consumes less energy. So that if it consumes less energy, and then those who produce the energy will also somehow be lessen the impact of it. Has a chain reaction actually. And next is litigation. What is litigation? Companies that generate significant carbon emission face the threat of lawsuits similar to those companies like the tobacco, probably the pharmaceutical, buildings and supplies, like examples, asbestos industries, those industries. So, if you do not abide to certain laws, of course, you are going to be faced with litigation risk. You have also observed this, that if you have vehicle, and if it is time for the vehicle to be renewed its registration, it has to go through an emission test, right? The emission test will be conducted so that to see that the carbon emitted by your vehicle is within the allowed carbon emission. So if it is beyond what is limited, that's the time that it's either you have to change your vehicle or you have to pay the fines. Hopefully people will change the vehicle so that um, it will emit less carbon. So, and if you do not, of course, you have to face litigation, or you have to pay the fines for what you are doing, in order for you what you are doing in emitting too much carbon gases in in the environment. Other companies also adopt guidelines for lending and asset management aimed to promote clean energy alternatives. Um, Clean energy alternatives like solar energy and the likes, and wind energy probably. And then some companies, or some businesses opt to change their bulbs, just as simple as bulbs, because the new generation bulbs now are more electricity efficient compared to that of before. It is less efficient in the consumption of electricity, but provides more light to us. So the next is reputational risk. If your company is being sued various times for crimes of emitting too much carbon dioxide, or not abiding with certain rules, and of course your reputation is going bad, going the wrong way. So, a company's impact on the environment can heavily affect its overall reputation. The Carbon Trust, a consulting group, found that in some sectors, the value of a company's brand could be at risk because of negative perceptions related to climate change. However, company with a good record of environmental sustainability may create a competitive advantage in terms of attracting and keeping loyal cost consumers, employees, and of course investors. The same goes for like I said a while ago, if you company is always on the headline of news, and then the headline is not good, you're always being accused of doing something that will harm the environment, that will harm the endangered species of the certain area, then your reputation will really go at risk. And then of course your existing consumers might have second thought that, oh, this company is doing bad, I don't think I'm gonna buy their products again, or any of their products, even if I need them. I have to look for alternative products because they're not doing good in the environment. So your reputation is at risk. And then again, the physical risk. The direct risk posed by climate change includes the physical effects of droughts, floods, storms, and rising sea levels. So the physical risk may be in your establishment, or of course during floods and your area is prone to floods, then one way or another, if the flood strikes your building, it could hamper production. So the physical risk. And then to somehow sum this up, the effects of climate change. The same goes for global warming. If you accept it as reality, adapting your strategy and practices, your your business will use less energy and emit fewer effluents. Probably your packaging will be more biodegradable, so that the fishes who eats it, it will just be digested in their organs, and your new products will be able to capture any markets created by severe weather effects. Global warming might not be as damaging as some predict, but actually it is damaging. And you might have invested more than you needed, but just as Pascal said, given all possible outcomes, the upside of being ready and prepared for a fearsome event surely beats the alternative. So technically, we have to embrace the fact that climate change and global warming is really happening. If you do not adopt your strategy to these environmental changes, one way or another, these external environmental changes will affect your internal environment. And if it affects your internal environment, it will affect your consumer or your products. So, might as well embrace it, and then change your or adopt a strategy that suits to what is happening in the environment. And with all that, because of climate change and globalization, sustainability, companies learn to adopt. And there are various theories of organizational adaptation. There are, I think, 4. And then organization learns. They learn from their past mistake. They learn from the experiences of other companies. So first, we're going to tackle about theories of organizational adaptation. So globalization and environmental sustainability presents real challenge to strategic management of business corporation. Because how can one company keep track of all the changing technological, economical, political, legal, and sociocultural trends around the world and make the necessary adjustments? This is not an easy task. So that's why there are various theories have been proposed by philosophers And that as they observe, this is what's happening with companies. The first theory is the theory of population ecology. So this theory proposes that once an organization is successfully established in a particular environmental niche, it is unable to adapt to changing conditions. Inertia prevents the organization from changing. The company is thus replaced by other organizations more suited to the new environment. Although it is a popular theory in sociology, but research fails to support the arguments of population ecology. So I'm gonna mention another brand here. Hopefully they're not going to sue me with this. Nokia. Nokia during my time in way back college, they are the most amazing phone. Probably just a notion. They were so successful during that time. I believe their profit is way, way, way up high. But probably they are unable to adapt to the changing conditions. And then they have been replaced and overtaken by other companies who are more suited to the new environment. So I think that's an example I can give. Next theory is the theory of institution theory. In contrast, this proposes that organization can and do adapt to changing conditions by imitating other successful organizations. So, to its credit, many examples can be found of companies that have adapted to changing circumstances by imitating and admired firms' strategies and management techniques. So, gaya-gaya. You just imitate. Oh, they are doing this. I think this is also okay for us to copy their strategy, but actually it's not always true. It depends upon the situation, because what is true or right to that certain organization, and if you imitate it, it might not be suited for your organization. So that's institution theory. So the next is the strategic choice perspective. This goes one step further by proposing that not only do organizations adapt to a changing environment, but they also have the opportunity and the power to reshape their environment. This perspective is supported by research indicating that the decision of a firm's management have at least as great as impact on the firm's performance as overall industry factors, because of its emphasis on managers making rational strategic decisions. The strategic choice perspective is the dominant one in strategic management. So what does this mean? Perspective is supported by research. So this is good. They do not imitate. They do not just imitate. They are not stuck, but they have research on what they need to do or what they have to do in order to have an advantage in how they're going to adapt to what is currently happening. And some organizations are actually doing this. Next is the organizational learning theory, which says that an organization adjusts defensively to a changing environment and uses knowledge offensively to improve the fit between itself and its environment. This perspective expands the strategic choice perspective to include people at all levels becoming involved in providing input into strategic decisions. So this is good. This theory is really good because you're not stuck You do not imitate. You are not just using the managers as in the strategic choice perspective to make rational decision, strategic decision, but you involve everybody. So the organization learns. So it adjusts defensively to the changing environment and uses its knowledge offensively to improve the fit between itself and the environment. And then in this situation, the the organization is trying to learn what they have done and what they need to do in order to make new strategies and have strategic decisions that could be of their advantage. So learning organization, so the learning theory. So this time it's good that the company is learning from and adjusting to what is happening in the environment. So a learning organization. What is a learning organization? Those are the theories. Now we are going to tackle more on the learning organization, or this is still a continuation of the theories, the last theory. To be competitive in the dynamic environment, corporations are becoming less bureaucratic and more flexible. So when you're talking about bureaucratic, there are a lots of level before you can go to the top. But when you say more flexible and less democratic, the company is more decentralized than centralized. In stable environments such as those that existed in the past years, a competitive strategy simply involved defining a competitive position and then defending it. But as of now, it's not the case anymore. Hyper competition, so meaning that any sustainable competitive advantage lies not in dodgingly following a certain managed 5-year plan, but is stringing together a series of strategic short-term thrusts. Because of hyper competition, you have to somehow make small strategic decision and short-term thrust. Because there are seasons in the year and there are certain trends that will just come out but you still have to compete. And then strategic flexibility, the ability to shift from one dominant strategy to another. It demands a long-term commitment to the development of nurturing of critical resources. So flexibility of your strategy. This is like your objective should be smart, right? Your strategic decision making or your strategy should also be smart at the same time flexible, so that whatever happens in the environment, your dominant strategy, you can shift from one dominant strategy to another dominant strategy wherein you can easily adapt to the market. And then learning organization, an organization skilled at creating, acquiring, and transferring knowledge and at modifying its behavior to reflect new knowledge and insights. Organizational learning is a critical component of competitiveness in a dynamic environment. It is particularly important to innovation and new product development. Perhaps that's why some of the top 20 Fortune 500 company are still, or will some of them still in the next years or the following years or the previous years are still in the top 20 Fortune 500 companies, because they are a learning organization. Their strategies are flexible and they study the market. At the same time, they have strategic management and they are involving everyone in the decision making of their company. So that lastly, learning organizations are skilled at 4 main activities. Solving problems systematically. You do not solve problem just like solving it. You have to be systematic approaches, experimenting with new approaches, learning from their own experience and past history, as well as from the experience of others. Learning, as they say, as we keep on hearing, is the best experience. But it is better or what is best than best if we learn from the experience of others, because we cannot experience everything just for us to learn. So if you see that a certain company has done something, or has made a bad decision, you're in the same industry, for instance, you are both in the entertainment industry or you are both in the food industry, if you see that they have act on a certain decision or a certain strategy and it went bad, then perhaps you're not going to follow it because you know their experience is bad already. Or if you want to follow it, at least study it, solve it first systematically, or experiment new approach so that you will not make the same mistake they have. Next is transferring knowledge quickly and efficiently throughout the organization. As simple as transferring knowledge, giving memo, or technical skills. You are delegating, you are mentoring, coaching. Organizational knowledge are composed of three basic strengths. If you can transfer this efficiently, then this is really good for the company and making strategic decisions. Technical skills, research. Functional knowledge, production and marketing, and of course, managerial expertise. You do not create more followers, but rather you create more leaders, so that if there are decision making that is needed in the company, then one way or another, it will be very, very beneficial for the company that you are in right now. So that is for the part 2 of the basic concept of strategic management. I'll be back for the part 3 until the part 5 of this introduction. Thank you.